Let me just welcome you to the fourth day of 12 food stories of inspiration and hope. And today is about action and reaction, I would say. In fact, there's a very famous quote from Einstein, and he said, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And it's a phrase adopted by Tony Robbins, who's a very famous life coach, internationally well known, etc. Now, I'm not a famous cooking coach yet, working on it, but here's my story that takes some of that essence and shows action and reaction, and why I wouldn't even be talking to you here right now if I hadn't acted and reacted through my own story. So here goes. So by the age of 18, to be honest, I didn't have any cooking skills other than peeling veg, in particular potatoes, frying an egg, boiling a potato, and watching over my mum's shoulder as she was cooking things. But I didn't actually cook. There was no junior master chef in me just yet. What those guys do on TV, by the way, is amazing. So there was no hint at all that I would be here today in this capacity talking to you. So then I got the student digs, and I had very, very limited facilities. So by the way, don't let limited facilities hold you back. I had no fridge. Often it varied where I was over the years. I had maybe 2 cooking rings, still no fridge. I had 1 cooking ring in particular for quite a while, no fridge, no hot water. And you very soon learn to make do. Admittedly, at the time, it wasn't all cooked from scratch. I certainly didn't have all the implements and gadgets that are here behind me now. But you improvise and you learn. You learn, you learn, you learn. Yes, there were some many tins actually of duck cassoulet, with more cassoulet than duck. But I learned to spice them up with a handful of dried herbs or this, that, and the other. I learned how to make a really, really good pizza in a frying pan. That was a good skill to learn. But basically, you adapt, you learn, you make do, like many of us do even today, right? We work with what we've got. So I I distinctly remember my first 3-course meal dinner party in my first flat when I was a freelance journalist in Antwerp in Belgium. And because the table that was in the kitchen had to be in the lounge to actually serve my guests, I was plating up food on a very clean kitchen floor, and there were delays, and I still get taken the piss out of them for that one. Thank you very much, Pilar and Philippe, by the way, if you're watching. That same couple also learned that some years later, I had no concept of portion sizes. There was an event where I was cooking spaghetti for Philippe while Pilar was in hospital having given birth to, I think it was their first baby. And I was doing spaghetti bolognese, not quite the ragu I do now, but a version of. And I had to go back with more portions of spaghetti because, that wasn't quite enough for 2 people. And this is a hungry man, right? Anyway, they're still take the piss out of me for all those things. So I move on a couple of years later, and I moved to England, where I still am, by the way, hurrah. And it was ready, steady cook every day because I had a proper job. He, my then boyfriend, later fiance, now ex-husband, other story. He would do the shopping because he had time in his hands. I would come home in the evening and, whatever was in the fridge, right? Remember the story yesterday, right? It's whatever in the fridge. This is what he bought. Not with much planning or thought, but this is what we've got. So it was a really steady cook every day. What can I make? So I learned and I learned action, reaction, reaction, action, right? In this case, more reaction because he had done the action already of doing the shopping, right? So I also in that time did a lot of baking because my mum would bake every week. And then I soon realized action, reaction, reaction, action, that that was a bit much for just the two of us and not quite good for the waistline or health for that matter, as we now know. We're talking years ago, by the way. So pass through the baking, move on another few years, and we used to have literally weekly dinner party with another set of friends of mine, and we took turns in cooking every week. And he was very much a cook and a foodie. I was very much a cook and a foodie. And I'll not say there was competition, but there was competition. So I would act, and then the next week he'd react, and then I would act based on his reaction. And we basically inspired each other every week to get better and better and try new things. And most of the time they worked, and sometimes they didn't. That was fine. That's part of the journey, right? I hate the word journey, but it is actually a fact of a part of the journey. So the passion for food, looking back where I hardly boiled a potato and fried an egg, move on 5 or 10 years, and this passion for food became bigger and bigger and bigger. I was by then in a corporate job, a corporate legal role. This is all about spare time stuff that I was doing. But I kept putting down these business plans. How can I make a business out of my love of food? Because if you do what you always do, you get what you always get. And although the career was going well, it wasn't my passion, right? It wasn't where I wanted to be. But then the money kept getting better. And although I rolled into that career by chance, it turned out I was rather good at it. So these business plans kept being put to the side, but in the background, this passion kept growing. Whenever I was traveling for business, I would choose the hotels near where the food is, not necessarily where the office was, right? I would stay the weekend to do masterclasses, workshops, learn, act, react. And this thing kept growing, and I kept doing these business plans and tossing them out of the window. Had a boyfriend with a gastro pub, later fine dining, worked front of house, back of house in my spare time. My corporate career kept gobbling up more of my time, more of my hours, because let's face it, the more you earn, the more they own you. And this passion kept growing, So one day, someone suggested I set up a food blog. And she suggested it on because people kept asking me recipes, tips. I'm a walking, talking food encyclopedia, for F's sake. Sorry. So she suggested that on a Sunday morning, 10 a.m. I think it was, via Facebook. Love Facebook. Sorry. And by 3 p.m. that afternoon, I'd set up my blog called The Dutch Foodie. I'm still called The Dutch Foodie now. The name stuck for my company. I'd never done a website. I've never done nothing about hosting. I didn't know anything about WordPress. But within 5 hours, my website was up and running with one recipe. And that's the same website still actually today that I have, which you may want to have a look at. I did a nutrition course. At some point, I was a real health freak, health bunny, juicing. You wouldn't say it now, but I went through all that phase. And then I eventually settled that I am who I am. I'm more of a gourmand than a gourmet, or both, but I'm certainly not a health bunny. Living on juices and raw food, although I've done all of that. Then I was made redundant. Now, a lot of you have faced that, have experienced that, especially many of you maybe this year even. So I got made redundant after 10 years with that particular company. It's quite funny, actually. I came home from travels in South Africa, full of new food ideas and invigorated to take on the world. And on the morning that I arrived with a jet lag, I got 2 emails. One was, "Thank you for being with our company for 10 years. It's so great to have you. Congratulations." And the other email was from my boss saying, "We need to talk." And I was being made redundant. Okay. Action, reaction. First, it was reaction, which was, to be honest, plain panic. Plain old, good old panic. What do I do? Reaction. Taken to action. If you always do what you always do, you get what you always get. By then, my legal corporate career of 25 plus years, I rolled out of bed every morning hating what I was going to do. There was no passion. I'd lost the passion. My passion was on the other side. So then you come to choices. And choices can be risky. Choices are what you decide to do. I could find another role doing what I did, getting a fabulous salary, being owned by the company, and hating waking up every morning doing what I was supposed to do. You know where this is going, right? I wouldn't be here talking to you if you didn't know the result of the choice I made. So my action was to decide to become a struggling startup as a private chef. I won't take you through some of the personal challenges that first year after took me through. Not far removed from a COVID year in different ways, but I chose that path. I became the person I had always wanted to be, to serve delicious food and contribute to the enjoyment of other people at the table sharing food. You've heard me talk about sharing food, right? I know. However, I was there with all my self-trained years of experience, but I wasn't professionally trained. And I looked at these other chefs, right? And they were all doing obviously amazing things. And I started to compare myself. I started to compare myself to these chefs that had been working in, you know, restaurant after restaurant, CVs as long as whatever, a toilet roll coming out of their asses, right? And my self-confidence wasn't the best. I believed in myself, but who was going to come to me and book me, right? Compared to all my competitors. And then the first 5-star reviews started coming in. And then some more, and then more 5-star reviews. And they all talked about not just the food. Obviously, the food has to be delicious. I do know how to cook by now compared to the potatoes back at home. But it was also about they enjoyed working with me. They enjoyed the passion and the spirit I brought within my food to their table, which was quite different from all those other chefs that I'd been comparing myself with. And those 5-star reviews kept coming in and in and in. You can check them out online. I'm not lying. I still can't believe it, but it's true. So I thought, okay, I don't need to compare myself anymore. I can accept myself for the chef, cook I am. And it's enough. In fact, it's more than enough. People enjoy it because what I bring to the table. And I bet that's very much what you as a home cook bring to your table. So everything was going, I was like, wow. And then, of course, let's face it, COVID killed my business. The risk of working, the bookings that got postponed, cancelled, the stock that had to be binned. I'm still obviously going to serve my postponed clients, but early on in the game this year, I decided, right, action, reaction. If you always do what you always do, you're always going to get what you always get. So what does that mean for me today? So I went back to square one and looked at what is it that I can do to help others in their kitchens, not just at their table physically, but what can I do to help others to do it themselves? And I looked back over the years and I realized actually, and friends kept telling me how inspirational I've been to them over the years and how I unknowingly have been coaching them in their own confidence, how to do things, how to learn things, how to think out of the box, hints and tips, I've been coaching so many friends and they wouldn't have been the home cooks they are now without me. They tell me that's what they tell me time and again. So I thought, okay, there's something in that. There's something big in that. Actually, you know what? If I do online coaching, cooking coaching, and help people with whatever their thing is that they need help with, getting better at theirs, dealing with being too busy, planning, getting inspiration. Gosh, I can reach so many more people than I can with being a private chef, which is limited to a local area. And by now it's out of the window anyway. So I started learning again. As soon as I realized that mid-year, April, May, June, I started learning again about how to do that, about how to fine-tune what I already did so many years and fine-tuning my knowledge into a space to help people like you to find their way and inspiration in the kitchen. I've done pretty much, I think, 3 university degrees of learning to pivot yet again. And it's now the time, I guess, this time of year is about reflection of 2020 and looking forward to 2021, right? And although this has been a difficult year, and I won't deny it, income has been, pretty few and far between because of everything as I'm pivoting again. I did actually get 2 awards this year. This difficult year, right? Best for Interactive Fusion Cooking Experience 2020. Yes! Because I do online cooking experiences as well. Me to you in your kitchen, 10 other kitchens, whatever. And an award for innovation in Indonesian and Dutch fusion cuisine, which I use in my group coaching programs. So looking back, it's been a miserable year, won't deny it. But action, reaction, and reaction leading to action has actually been amazing and has opened a whole new world for me for 2021. So looking back, what has changed in your kitchen this year? Has it been a challenge? Has it been an invigoration? What challenges have you overcome? Maybe the kids have been home more than ever. You've been working at home, whereas normally you were maybe in an office. So what awards would you give yourself for adapting your kitchen and your cooking for 2020? Give yourself an award. no matter how small. No win is too small. Did you bake your first bread this year? Did you learn trial and error to work with yeast this year? Did you started growing your first carrot, your first parsnip? Or did you increase doing that kind of thing? Did you manage to somehow serve 3 meals to your family without getting too anxious about it? And if you did get too anxious about it, don't worry, many people do. Don't compare yourself to others like I did with all those other chefs that were all already doing stuff that I was just, teetering into kind of thing. Did you get more involved with your cooking with your partner, with your children, your grandchildren? And if not, how about you try to do that next year? How about then you can give yourself an award for that, saying, actually, these are such strange times. We can't do things the way we used to do them, but in some ways they may have been better, or in some ways they can be better. If you make it so, action, reaction, if you do what you always do, you get what you always get. You're stuck. Don't get stuck, right? Everything we do has a result and an impact. And that goes for your kitchen as well. So with much love from my kitchen to yours, that's enough rambling for day 4. Tomorrow, we talk about generosity. So I'm hoping that you will join me there.